So the most fundamental thing to understand when you first start building in Glide is how the data in your project maps to the way that it looks in the app that you're playing around with here. So let's have a look at that now. We're going to head to the data editor, and we can see that the tables of data that we imported from our Excel spreadsheet have been converted to Glide tables. And we can use this just like a spreadsheet. We can edit the data here and preview the different tables. Now, in the layout editor, we can see that the tables of data have been converted to this kind of UI that we can preview in different ways. For example, we can see each row represented as an item. And then when we click into one of these items, we can see all of the columns for that row represented in these components that we see here. Now, when you're first starting to play around with this, it can be a bit confusing. And so one of the best things to do, I recommend, is opening this mini data editor down here that we call the data panel. Now, this will always change depending on what you've clicked on. So for example, here we're clicking on the locations screen here, and we see the locations data, and we can see that how that's mapping to the layout. Even if we change the way that this looks, it's still reading from the same data. And then if we click into, for example, warehouse 3, we see that we're just looking at a single row now. We're on a detail screen which represents that single row. But then if we click back, we can see we're now viewing this whole collection. So the data panel is a really good thing to have open. But for this tutorial, I'm going to close it just to keep our screen a little bit more simple. Let's head back to the products screen here and mess around with some of the data that we're displaying. So as well as displaying this data in different ways, we can also change the properties that are showing. So currently the column that's showing us the title is the name column, but we could change it to, for example, the SKU or something else. I'm going to change it back to the name column now, and we can see that we're not actually using this meta description here. So let's add the SKU, and we can now see that showing up there. By default, whenever you create a new screen, you'll get this collection component on it if your table has more than one row. And also by default, your users will be able to add new rows in a screen like this. You can change that, however, by toggling these switches. And these are basically actions which are enabled on the collection. But that sounds a bit complex probably for now, so we'll cover that later.